Hi everyone, welcome to another Broken Meeple Blitz review. At the same time that I've been talking about the Shifting Seasons expansion for Villagers on my shelf, I also wanted to talk about the standalone game Streets from the same publisher, but other than artwork and look and aesthetics, completely separate to Villagers. So don't think that this is like a companion or a sequel or anything like that. Streets is a city building tile game where you and the other players are building up a city in front of you with these building tiles, and you're trying to score the most money by the end of the game. To do so, you are attempting to close off streets by basically having enclosing buildings at each end, and within those streets have buildings that you own that are valued higher than the other players. So for example, a chillax bar here. $2 for each tourist symbol in the street. The buildings have got different symbols on them depending if they are a family building or a shopper building or a hipster building. You know, you tell me what a hipster means in your context. But, you know, they've got various ways that they will score money, and you're hoping that your building will be in a street where it's going to be valued high as a result. For example, here, you know, $6 for every 2 tourist symbols in the street, which is a green symbol. So naturally, you want this to be in a street where there's a lot of green symbols present. It makes sense. On top of these buildings though, you also have these different meeples that correspond to the buildings themselves. These meeples will go out onto the buildings as they come into play, and some of the buildings will key off them in terms of how much they're worth. So for example, these yellow hipsters, there might be a building like a posh nightclub that says you get $2 for each yellow meeple sitting on it. Okay, well there you go. You got the yellow meeples. If you can get them on that building, it will be worth more. And essentially you just keep drawing a new tile to your hand. You've only got a hand size of 3. You'll decide which one of them you want to build. You'll build it down based on certain placement restrictions, and you'll carry on in this fashion until somebody encloses the street off. At which point the entire street scores, and everybody who has one of their ownership tokens on a building scores that particular building and takes the money. You carry on in this fashion pretty much until the stack of tiles has run out and everybody's hand, at which point you simply just score up everything that's left on there with ownership tiles, which is done at half the rate, and then you collate all the money, and of course the one with the most money is the winner.
Of course!
So the easiest thing to get out of the way first is the aesthetics. The aesthetics for this are beautiful. If you like the artwork for Villagers, which I might as well get off the shelf just to illustrate, but this whole stark white background with colour that just pops off it, if this artwork impressed you in Villagers, you're going to get the same type of thing in Streets. It's that kind of style. So we're talking, for the most part, a white background with colourful art that just pops off every tile. When you have got these tiles laid out on the table in different like rows and columns, because you are effectively building them in Streets, it is a thing to behold. It will easily turn heads as they walk past, as they go, well, these are very pretty. And even like for a standard edition, this is just very well produced. The cards are of decent quality, the tiles are decent quality. I mean, they're chunky, they're not gonna bend or anything. And you get some storage boxes for, you know, proper wooden meeples of different colors, as well as, you know, thick wooden ownership tokens that you put out to say which building is yours. And you've even got a Hessian bag with the money in it, which comes in cardboard form in the retail version, but in the Kickstarter version, I think you could get wooden versions. Of course, this bag is completely pointless because all the money is laid out at the start of the game and you're just basically taking money when you need it. It's not hidden from anyone. So having this is purely just a fancy storage solution. Okay, fine. It's good production values, but yeah, maybe they could have saved themselves a few quid and just not bothered with the bag.
Do you think maybe he's compensating for something?
Streets offers a player count of 1 to 5 players, so you can play this in solo mode, where you go up against the Grifter, as it's called. The Grifter solo mode functions pretty much identical to how a 2-player game of this would do. You build the city in your normal way, except that after you've built a tile, you effectively build something for the opponent, and you have to build it in such a way that it would benefit them the most. The only slight tweak from the multiplayer to the solo mode is that the building stack is face up rather than face down. So you know what the Grifter is going to build on the next turn, and you can plan for that. And then there's easy, medium and hard levels of difficulty, and of course you've got to get more money than the Grifter. But as I say, other than that, it's a very simple solo mode, and to be honest, probably my favourite way to play the game.
This is why Superman works alone.
You know, not to say that the multiplayer is bad, but there are some caveats with playing this in multiplayer form. I find that in 2 to 3 player, this actually moves along at a decent pace. 4 to 5 players though comes with a little bit of problems. Firstly, it's a bit slower. You've got to wait for everybody to decide, oh, where's the best place to put my building tile? Not entirely sure. Could go there, but that's not, I don't know, maybe it would be better here. And when you've got to do that with 3 or 4 opponents, you're going to be sat there waiting a while because there's not a huge amount you can do when it's not your turn.
I hit with him.
On top of that, the board state gets a little bit chaotic with 4 or 5 players. When you see the streets slowly build up with 2 or 3 players or in your solo mode, you can kind of plan for what's going to happen a bit more, or you can kind of expect, oh, a street might get closed off or reach its maximum size. But when you've got 4 or 5 players, it's almost a bit like playing some of the Ticket to Ride maps in 5-player mode. One minute you see a street that you think, oh, that'd be nice to go in. Yeah, oh, it's already full up. Oh, right, okay, that happened fast. It only had 2 buildings in it when it was the end of my turn. When did it suddenly get another 3 buildings in it? Well, 5 players, that can happen. It just kind of goes on a little bit too long for my liking. The replay value is a little bit standard really, because you will see every single city tile in the game. That's not going to change, and it's up to you what you do with the 2 little mini expansions. But other than that, the game will play out in essentially the same way every single time, with the only real difference being how the city gets built as the game goes on. It may create some interesting combinations of buildings and valuations, and maybe the whole fear of missing out rule will go completely bonkers in some games, and in others it will be fairly basic. But yeah, each game isn't really going to feel drastically different to the next. It's a very easy game to pick up as well. It's not a particularly large rulebook, and as with Villagers, it's written very well with a lot of pictorial examples. I didn't have a problem understanding the rules in this, and if you really want to get it ingrained into your skull, then Paul Grogan has done a gaming rules video. You can scan the QR code from here or just check out his channel on gaming rules, and you'll get a really decent tutorial and playthrough of this as well. The only rule that I was a little bit ho-hum about this, and it's kind of an aspect of the game that I'm a bit like, do I like this one or not? And that is the fear of missing out rule with the meeples. The idea that when a building scores, all the meeples that are on it suddenly congregate onto another building of the same color somewhere else in the city. I get the thematic connection on some of the buildings, like hipsters wanting to go to the next best posh nightclub, but there are some buildings here where I'm a little bit confused as to why anybody would be like, fear of missing out for a tourist shop, or the best sushi, or flea market, or a chillax spa. Do we really have fear of missing out on that? I don't know, but ignoring the theme, it's also a little bit of a fiddly rule, because you've got, okay, right, hang on, I need to find the street on the next different street that hasn't scored yet, that's of the same color, and because it's my turn, I get to pick, right, and they all congregate on this one building. That can lead to a lot of swings though in the game, because you end up giving one player suddenly about $7-8 extra worth on their valuation, purely because when you scored that street, it's like, oh, they all go to your building because it's the only green on the table. Oh, that sucks a bit. Whereas that player is like, cha-ching, I get a bunch of extra money for doing diddly squat. And you can't exactly stop it from happening unless you conveniently have the right color building and you get to trigger the FOMO thing yourself. Because you end up with a lot of situations where you'll decide, right, I'm going to score this street. Boom, I've scored it. Now I've got to move all these green meeples. Right, well, I've got 2 choices. This player or that player. And you're essentially going, well, who's got the least money? Fine, I'll give it to you. And that's all the decision making you do with it. I feel like I don't know if I like it or not. It works, but I can't tell if it's swingy or not quite mechanically sound. I don't know. It's every time I play this game, I always get a little bit of a negative buzz feeling about the way that this fear of missing out rule works. And like I say, it's an aspect of the game. It's not a huge aspect compared to the rest of the way that you'll score money, but it's still a factor you have to play into it. And sometimes I play it and I go on fine. Sometimes it leads to ridiculous situations like 10 meeples on a building, which I've then got to score at some stage. See my previous point about intermittent scoring all the time. And like I say, I'm hit or miss on the subject. I'm curious what other people would think on this. Now, you can throw in a couple of little expansions in here, and one of them I say you should throw in every single game, and the other one you can take or leave. The take or leave one are these consultants, which basically gives each player a ridiculous, game-breaking special power, and you get to use it throughout the game. It's cool, but I would say that if you're teaching new players, you could probably leave these out, and you're not really missing much. But These location tokens I suggest you throw in every single game, mainly because it actually gives you more ways to actually get some points, and it's a simple inclusion. All that happens is when you score a particular building, like for example, the upvoted hotel, then you also grab the token that corresponds to the symbol on the top, in this case a house. And that's essentially all you do until the end of the game, at which point you score points based on who has the most of each type of token, but also who has different sets of tokens. If you've ever played Majesty for the Realm, it's pretty much identical to the way that the location set bonus is done at the end of that. It rewards you for majority, but also rewards you for diversity, so you can pick and choose what you're going to do. It's an easy include, you might as well just throw it into every game. But it's not perfect either, because, and this is kind of a flaw with the game in general, in the way it's done. You have a face down stack of all these tiles. You only ever have 3 at all in your hand, and you draw 1 from a face down stack at the end of your turn. I mean, I know these are poorly shuffled, but fine, there we go, face down. So you're kind of looking at luck of the draw for a lot of this. You know, you've got your 3 buildings and you think, well, I've got a pink one here, a basic wild one, and a green one. Cool. Oh, that street could really be great if I had a yellow building. Oh, what a shame I don't have a yellow building. And I know that the next one I'm going to pick up is going to be a green, so where's a good place for green? There isn't one. Oh, okay. Well, that's a little bit naff. And sometimes you can find that you just end up with the perfect building for the perfect moment, purely just by luck of the draw. You didn't know it was going to come up, you didn't know it was going to be like, well, you knew that a colour was going to come up, but they function differently, so it might not even be the right building for you. I would have maybe preferred it if you had a face-up stack as well. So what you could have was a face-down stack, and then have 3 face-up. Here's your hand of 3, and then after you've played my student house there, I can decide, right, well, do I want the green one off the top? Or, hang on a minute, that hotel there looks pretty good. I'll take that one, replenish from the stack, and carry on. I don't know why they didn't do that. Personally, I think I might house rule that into a few of my games and see how that works, but I think that maybe that would just give you a little bit of extra choice. At the moment, you're kind of very reliant on the stack giving you what you need. The other thing I'm a little bit sort of hesitant on with the game, it's not too bad, but it's a similar problem I had with something like Bunny Kingdom, which is coincidentally no longer in my collection at the moment. We'll get onto that in a cull video. But in Bunny Kingdom, you essentially did this cool stuff and then you grinded to a halt every now and again in order to do the scoring. The exact same thing happens here. The scoring isn't quite as involved as in Bunny Kingdom, you just do it more frequently. Every time a street closes off, which is fairly often in the game. I mean, the streets can only have 5 buildings apiece, and well, it's a big stack of tiles. So, and streets are going to close off at lower values as well. So you're going to be scoring quite often. You have to then grind the game to a halt to go through every single building and go, right, so hang on a minute. So that's 2 for every symbol. Let's count the symbols, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? That's 12. You also get 1 for every meeple that's on there, so that's 13, 14. Okay, you get 14 money, right? Now the next building, right? Okay, so that's 2 for each yellow meeple in the street. Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, right? You get 8, and then there's 2 meeples on there, so that's another 10. So you get 10. You got to do that potentially up to 5 times per street. That's cool the first few times. After a while, that starts getting a little bit annoying. Constantly having to basically say, oh, stop the game, we gotta score this a little bit here. All in all, I like the game. Those 2 flaws kind of drop it a little bit for me, but this is one that I would bring out every now and again if I've got 2 or 3 players, and certainly I found the solo mode to be a nice, pleasant, relaxing experience to enjoy building up a city. Do I prefer it to Villagers? It's kind of on par, really. I like them both for different reasons. I mean, Villagers is in my collection, and I think I gave it a 7 out of 10 when I originally did. You know, I like it as a nice, relaxing drafting game. I kind of like this for a similar reason. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 as well. You know, it's a good game. I'll give it a seal of endorsement. I find it a relaxing city building game. It just maybe could have been a lot greater if it sort of mitigated the luck aspect a little bit, and if maybe that, you know, people FOMO rule was a little bit more etched out. I don't know. It's like I say, I don't know how you would change it, but for me, it just didn't quite gel. Didn't quite work for me. But like I say, love the production quality and like the simplicity and look of it, so I still recommend giving it a look. You know, Kickstarter backers should be getting their one from last year pretty soon, but to be honest, there's so little difference between it and the retail version, you might as well just grab yourself a retail copy and see if you enjoy it as well. So that's it for me on this review of Streets. If you like what you see, please consider leaving a thumbs up on the channel, and don't forget that this channel is sponsored by Zatu.co.uk. Look in the description for the 5% discount code. It will get you a 5% discount on the entire basket of games. Save yourself some pennies while acquiring Streets or Villagers or some other game that's taking your fancy. And if you're interested in more content on this channel, I spoke about the expansion to Villagers, which I reviewed a couple of days ago, so have a look for that. But then also, if you just want to check out a recent top 10 I did on endgame conditions, you can check out that video as well. Until next time, remember as always, it's only a game. Bye for now.